Hi, girls. Today is Monday, April 6th. I hope you had a great weekend. So, what we're doing today is something new, and it is called line plots. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our knowledge of fractions that's in our table here of data. And basically, what a line plot is a number line, but a number line that represents a specific amount of data. So our I can statement, I can create a line plot that represents data. So let's take a look at the data we have here. We have a list of scholars, and then we have distance in miles. Distance is how far something is. So maybe these scholars were running, maybe these scholars were walking, maybe these scholars were biking. They were all doing the same thing, and the table represents the distance that they went. So for example, Milan, 2 3/4 miles. Kimira, 1 3/4 miles. Kimira, 1.5 miles. So what I want to do is I want to set up this data on a line plot, which starts out basically as a number line. So when I first look at my mixed numbers and fractions here, I need to think about what is the highest value and what is the lowest value, because that's going to determine the two ends of my line, of my number line. So when I look here, I can clearly see that the highest value is that 2 3/4. But I also notice that I have an improper fraction. Jamila ran 4 halves. So first, I'm going to rewrite that as a whole number or a mixed number. I know that 4 halves is the same as 2 wholes. So Jamila ran 2 miles. Another thing I notice is that I have different units here. I have fourths and I have halves. So what do you think I should do with those halves? Hopefully you said convert them into fourths. I know that 1.5 is the same as 1 2/4. I'm usually using my knowledge of equivalent fractions. I know that 2.5 is equal to 2 2/4. So now I have the same units. I have all fourths. And when I look, I see that 2 3/4 is the largest or the longest distance, and that 2/4, there's no whole number there, 2/4 is the shortest distance. So I know that 2/4 is less than 1. So I'm going to start my number line at 0. And I know the highest value is 2 3/4, but that means it's more than 2. So I can't stop at 2. I'm going to go to the next whole number, which is 3. So now I have the beginning of my line plot, which is ranging from 0 to 3. Now I look at my units again, and I have fourths. So now I have to decompose my number line into fourths. So that means in between 0 and 1, I need fourths. And there are my 4 parts. In between 0 and 1, labeling 0, there's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. In between 1 and 2 and 3, I have to do the same exact thing. So here I have 1 whole. Well, that makes this 1 and 1/4. 1 and 2/4. 1 and 3/4. 2. 2 and 1/4. 2 and 2/4. 2 and 3/4. 3. Now that I have my number line set up, I'm going to plot the data on my number line. Now, when we've plotted other values on the number line, we've used a point right on the line. A line plot is different because there's a lot of data going on the number line. So I'm going to start with 2 and 3/4. 2 and 3/4 is all the way at the end here. And I represent it with an X. So that represents a scholar. And that scholar ran 2 and 3/4. My next one is 1 and 3/4. 1 and 3/4. That represents another scholar, and that scholar ran 1 and 3/4. Then I have 1 and 2/4, 2 and 2/4, 2/4, 2 wholes, 2 and 1/4, and 2 and 2/4 again. When there are values in common, I just put one X above the next. And then if there was a third, I put another X up there. So now my line plot is complete, but I might be asked some questions about it. Like I'm thinking, what's the difference between the longest distance and the shortest distance? Well, the longest distance is right here, 2 and 3/4. The shortest distance is right here with 2/4. If they're asking me to find the difference, that clue word is telling me to subtract. Two and 3/4 minus 2/4. 3/4 minus 2/4 is 1/4. 2 minus nothing is 2. So that means the difference between the longest distance and the shortest distance is 2 and 1/4 mile. I might also be asked about specific items in my data, like how much farther did Janessa run than Amoya? So again, how much farther? That means I'm going to be subtracting because I have to find the difference. So it looks like Janessa had 2 and 2/4. Amoya had 2 and 1/4. Now I'm going to find the difference. 2/4 minus 1/4 is 1/4. 2 minus 2 is nothing. So Janessa ran 1/4 mile more than Amoya. I might also be asked, what was the total distance that was run by all of the scholars? Well, total would mean I had to add, and I would have to add all of these fractions. I will make you do that today. So a little bit different. You're only going to be doing one online lesson each day now, and you're going to be doing lesson 28 and also the lesson 28 packet work. So do great, and I can't wait to see your work. See you tomorrow.